My name is Jesper Ejsing. I'm a Danish fantasy illustrator. They will know me from Magic the Gathering illustrations. I've been doing so many Magic card arts, but also other way many computer games, card games. Over the years, I've been working on a lot of different platforms, but Magic the Gathering is where I still do most of my illustrations since 2005. So that's, what is that, 16, 17 years? Something like that, 16 years? I can't count, but close enough. I've always wanted to be a jazz musician, but since I can't either sing or play, I guess that's just a dream scenario. But to be perfectly honest, recently one of the hobbies that I picked up and picked up fast is bird photography or wildlife photography. So even now I try to work less and just go out in nature more and find birds and shoot beautiful photos of them. Because unlike you and I here, I can't place the bird in the chair and set the light. I really have to find it and find its flight pattern, find out where it sits nicely with a good background, and then I can take some pictures. It has made me look at my artwork differently now, because when you shoot 300 photos of the same bird and you go home afterwards and try to select the one that is good, it's kind of like the other way around with illustrations. With illustrations, you have to make up your mind and create the good photo. So looking at it that way from bird photography, I notice what the strength is in a good photo, and I can apply that to my illustrations. So it helps each other. I think a lot of the stuff that I read when I was young has, especially Lord of the Rings, has made an enormous impact in seeing that there is another world out there, that there is a world beyond ours, a world that is completely made up in the mind. And the journey to that road or to that world is what draws me constantly, because that other world is also where I can show my vision. It's not, if I go to the Caribbean and take a lot of photos of the Caribbean, it's going to be the same experience that somebody else has, because it's the same place. But if I refer back to a fight with a black dragon in the pits of hell, that's going to be my experience. And that's completely different from another artist showing the same scenario. That really appeals to me. I think my way of approaching an illustration is the same no matter the medium. But I know that the reason why I went into digital was to achieve effects that I knew was almost impossible in traditional media. And I hated the fact that there was something I couldn't do. Or even worse, that this image needed something that I couldn't apply. That annoyed me. And that's why I went into it like, I gotta learn this, because at some point it's gonna be useful for an illustration, for a story. And I think that's what I try to take into my own artwork, is that make plans, make decisions beforehand, and when you start painting, have fun with it. A little bit of both, actually, because I usually work from an art assignment that asks me to do a specific thing. And that could be a simple thing. It can be a creature walking in the forest, looking serene or quiet and happy, but with an outside that looks terrible or horrible, right? So already there we have a juxtaposition, an interesting conflict. And that's what I try to, I go into a phase where I search for that narrative. How can I show that to the best of my ability for the clearest and the simplest way possible? And then ideas will come up. Then I will say, oh, if I actually put dead people, rotten people on the spikes on his back, but he looks super nice and happy and eat leaves, then we have like, how did they get there? Is it people who died trying to kill him? Then suddenly I spin out on a story that I don't even need to explain. But if I'm putting that in there, people will wander around in my painting and have the same questions that I have. And that will be, then my painting will be more than just an image. It will be a moment in time. It will be a story that it took place for, and it will take place again. Like, do you know what I'm saying? It's more than just that image. It's a whole narrative. It's a mixed bag because I will both want to say work harder, do even more, practice more than I did. On the other hand, I want to say just relax, it's going to be okay. Don't fret so much. Don't think that this is do or die. You're going to get there anyway. I mean, it's a very mixed, because when you're young and you're trying to make it, in some way you're focusing on the wrong things, because you're focusing on getting something, getting the job, getting an assignment that is showing how good you are. You're focusing on a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with what you really enjoy and what you want to be and what you want your art and your expression to be. On the other hand, that's impossible to tell a young artist, because that's something I wish that was in me from the beginning, but it's not. It's only there because it's built on years and years of experience. So maybe it is in some way impossible to give me a good advice 20 years ago. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I can't specifically say one thing, but I never went to any educational art school, or I never had any mentor or anything. I just had to teach myself all of it, which means that compared to students, I have many, many more trials and errors and mistakes to succeed from, or learn from, or adapt from, which I think in the end has strengthened me a lot, because I had to find my own way, and my own way of doing things. Nobody really taught me how. On the other hand, I wish every time I drew or painted together with people who had an education, I could see what the groundwork meant for them, that the solid foundation they had meant that they were able to do stuff that I found very, very hard. But in finding stuff very, very hard, I had to make up my own systems. When it came to color or storytelling, or when it came to compositioning, I had to find a way so I could make it look like I knew what I was doing. And in that faking till I make it, I learned a lot about what my strengths were, or I learned to be me. And in that way, I think I turned the mistakes around to something good, I hope. I use so many shortcuts and cheats and all of that stuff, because nobody ever said to me that you can't do this or that. So in all simplicity, I try to avoid doing buildings in the background, or you make enormously landscape with complicated perspective, because I'm never good at perspective. So I just use low angles and clouds and trees and stuff that don't necessarily need a perspective, because that way I can get away with more. So I cheat a lot, and I skip the fences and jump. What do you say? I do a lot of all that stuff, but I still think a lot about why I'm doing it. It's not laziness, it's to clarify and make my image more easy to read.